In this video, we're looking at an example of a tech sales resume. I'll go through this resume that you see on the screen and point out different aspects of the formatting and the language so that you can make changes to your own resume if you are applying for tech sales jobs. I'll also show you how to get this template at the end of the video if you would rather just use this template instead of having to do all the formatting yourself. I'll show you how to easily download this template, and then you can just put in all your own information. To start out, let me just zoom out so you can see what the full page resume looks like. So obviously this second page isn't part of the resume. This just has some extra information, and we'll talk about that as well. But your resume should really only be one page. So this view shows you what the full page resume looks like. You'll notice there's not a lot of white space. Up here in the education section is really the only area for white space. It's recommended that you really don't have very much white space on your resume at all, just barely enough for it to be, pleasant to read. So it's not entirely text, but you don't want that much white space. Let's zoom back in and go to the top of this resume and kind of walk through it, part by part. The best part about this resume is that the formatting is super clean. It sounds simple, but when a recruiter or hiring manager opens up your resume and looks at it for the first time, the most obvious thing to them immediately is going to be the formatting. And if the formatting looks off or sloppy or like you didn't put any effort into it or it looks disorganized, that's immediately going to give that recruiter or hiring manager the urge to pass on your resume and go on to the next resume. So one of the biggest benefits of using a template for your resume is that you make sure that the formatting looks really nice and clean. So starting at the top section here, there's really nothing complicated here. You basically just want to have your name and your contact information. Education is typically the top section of your resume. So if you did go to college or university, you can include the name and then what you major or minored in. I've also seen people include honors here. So maybe if you didn't have a minor, but you were part of a scholarship program or a fellowship program, or you won an award, or you were like magna cum laude, or you received any other type of honors, you might be able to put that here as well. And then just put the location of your college or university, the month and the year that you graduated, and then your GPA. So that'll be the education section. And then next, moving on to the experience section. So for tech sales jobs specifically, you really want to prioritize and emphasize any experience you have that makes it seem like you're a really good fit for a tech sales position. So we'll talk about this. Well, actually, let's just scroll down and look at it right now. So on the second page of this template, we talk about the common tech sales job requirements. So I actually personally went through a ton of tech sales job postings and looked at all the requirements sections and made a list of the things that most commonly recurred in all of these tech sales job requirements for like sales development representative, business development representative, and account development representative. And these were the most common job requirements. So obviously experience working in sales. Interestingly, a lot of them listed these specific sales tools as like a plus. So if you have worked with any of these sales tools before, definitely emphasize that in your resume. Experience in business development, working for a tech company, working for a startup, and then the obvious ones like writing abilities, phone skills, and communication skills. So the reason I show that is because when a tech sales recruiter or hiring manager looks at your resume, the first section they're really going to pay attention to is the first listing in your experience section. And so this is where you really want to list those bullet points or emphasize those bullet points that we just went through in terms of your experience in sales, your experience with those sales tools, experience in business development, working for a startup, working for a tech company. Any experiences like that, if those are present in your first section or your first job experience in the experience section, immediately the tech sales recruiter or hiring manager is going to be thinking, okay, this person has some relevant experience to the job that we are hiring for. So really try to emphasize or try to put whatever part of your experience kind of checks those boxes, those requirements, as the first section in your experience section. Now, you don't want to put a job that you had 10 years ago necessarily, or like some very short internship that you had during high school. Ideally, this is your most recent job, but there is a little flexibility at the margin. If maybe you worked in a sales job for like 2 years, then you recently had like a 2-month job that you realized you didn't like and you want to go back to tech sales, like examples like that are situations where you might just leave off that little short 2-month job and just emphasize the sales job that you had before, because you really, with as much as you can in terms of keeping it in the chronological order, you do want to emphasize that tech sales job at the beginning. Moving on here, I guess one other thing we could talk about is how you word these bullet points. Obviously, I just have filler text in here right now. You can Google online for resume tips in terms of how to write these bullet points. The advice that's really common is like start with an action verb. So action verbs are like created or managed or called or created or supervised. There's lists of action verbs that you can find online, and that usually is the word that you want to start the bullet point with. Another tip that is super important, especially in tech sales, is quantifying. So any experience you've had, you try to quantify with numbers as much as possible, especially if you've had any type of sales role or performance-based role in the past. If you can say, you hit 150% of your quota, or you generated $75,000 in revenue for the company, anything like that with numbers is really going to pop on your resume. Other than that, just do a quick Google search for resume tips for the bullet points. And I think those are really the most important points for the resume, to be honest. Like I always tell people, don't overcomplicate it. Really, you want to have really clean formatting. You want to include relevant experience to the job you're applying to make it seem like you're actually a good fit for the job. And then you want to follow those few pieces of advice in terms of how you actually word the bullet points. But other than that, the resume, it shouldn't really be that complicated. So let's just scroll down here and double check some of the things we've listed in terms of how to use this template. A lot of that is pretty self-explanatory. If you do download this template, you can just read these instructions and follow them when you're editing the template for yourself. And then some just common tips. Keep it to one page. We already talked about. List your experiences in reverse chronological order. That just means your most recent experience will be first. Highlight your experience in tech and or sales. We already talked about, try to hit these bullet points because this is what tech sales recruiters are really looking for. Start each bullet point with an action verb. You can Google what an action verb is, or list of action verbs on Google. And then quantify with numbers whenever possible. So I think we've really hit all of those points. In terms of how to get access to this template, you can go to our website, which is breakintotechsales.com. This is what the homepage looks like. And then on this top bar, you'll see that there's a section for templates. And we have 2 templates right now. There's the resume template, and then there's the cover letter template. If you click here to purchase resume template, this screen will pop up and you can just go through the checkout in order to purchase the template. It's $5. You'll get the exact PDF that we were just looking at in the video, and that way you can just easily go in and edit with your own information without having to do all of the formatting on your own. And in addition to the PDF file, you're also going to get the Microsoft Word file and a Google Docs link. That way, it's easy for you to edit either on Microsoft Word or Google Docs, whichever you preferred. So hopefully that was helpful. The resume is very important in your tech sales job search, mainly because when you're trying to get from sending an application to getting an interview, it's the main thing that a recruiter or hiring manager is going to look at to determine whether they want to invite you to an interview. If you have already been applying for tech sales jobs, you know that the main thing in a lot of these applications is just uploading your resume, and that's pretty much the main part of the application. So in order to maximize the amount of interviews you're getting invited to from the applications you're sending out, you really want to have a solid resume, and that starts with having a good template with good formatting. Last thing I'll say, if you are trying to get a job in tech sales, definitely subscribe to this YouTube channel. That's pretty much all we talk about is tech sales and how to get a job in tech sales. So be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.